It would lighten up any room. So here is the bag. Okay. So as you can see, it's black, it's square, it's about 10 by 10, and it is narrow. It's only about 1 inch wide. Hello, Vanessa. And now I haven't put a closure on here yet. Hello, Sarah. You love anything colourful. Yeah, it is really lovely. So I've got a bag plug. It is going to have a snap down here, but I wanted to use my green machine, which I'd lost. Now I found my green machine, but I can't find all my fastenings. I have looked, and I don't really go in for looking for things. I wait till I find them. But I need to find this, and I don't know where it is. It's in a tub that I've made, a fabric tub, and I can't find it. I know where it was before I had a shift around. It was on a stand over in that corner. Obviously, it's no longer there. So this one, I've put a lovely barley, and yes, it is black canvas. Oh, thank you, Sophie, you love it. Yes, so does Mavis. So as you can see, there's that little bit of yellows, or that barley colour here. There we are at the top. And as I say, I decided, so that's what I've got for my lining. Now, it is basic. Could it be used as a laptop? Yeah, well, that was my thought. I've called it a messenger bag because it's basically like a messenger bag. But it's big enough for a tablet, most definitely. It's probably big enough for an iPad Pro. I don't know about the mats, but it is quite big. And that was what I had in my mind. If I'd made it big enough for a laptop, it would have to be a bit longer. But you could do that, absolutely could. Now, as I say, I usually do, yeah, it is like a satchel, isn't it? Yes, it would. I've done the basics. I haven't put any pockets in this, but I think a lovely internal zip pocket across there, patch pocket on the front would be fab. And even when I've done bags in the past, you could have a little slip pocket underneath the flap here. There we are. I thought it's something I think you would like, Susan. I see a lot of your bags and they are lovely. But yes, and it is quite quick and straightforward. So I'm going to set that aside and show you what we need to do. Okay, thank you, Yvonne. So what I've done though, I'll show you the lining of the next one I'm going to do. And I went to my little stash, or my studio, which is full, and I'm having, obviously my lining is going to be the other way out once I've made the bag. Let's just show you so you can see. So I'm having lining with this one, which is a purple. This is a Figo fabric, so it's from Stoff, so it is beautiful. But that is going to go with it beautifully as well. There's a little bit of lilac and purple on there, but I think that works really, really well. So I love a bit of purple. I haven't got any cerise at the minute, any raspberry. Oh yeah, I had actually. Oh, I can remember now. Zingy, yes. I'm really into my linings being a little bit special these days. And yeah. So that's how we work. So what do we need? What do we need? We need just one panel. And this panel, can you see I've curved it? So you decide which way around you want this to be. It can be any way around. You might want your yellowy fabrics at the top. Now I have chosen it to be, so my yellows are there. And I basically cut around, or I positioned the ruler to give me a 10.5 inch square. Then I folded my fabric in half with the right sides out so that I could see, and I just trimmed through both layers to curve it at the bottom. So then when I opened it out, I've got a very even curve on both sides. If you wanted to have straight cut off bits, fine. If you want to leave it as a square, absolutely fine too. Oh dear Sue. So this is the flap, and how I thought I'd make it a little bit different is to add piping around the edges. I was going to border it with black, but then I thought I didn't want a huge border. So, as I probably didn't point out, this is what we've done. Can you see there? So we have got piping around the edge, which just sets it off that little bit. Hello, Christine, don't worry. I'm sure denim would go with it. Denim would go absolutely fine. So here is my denim bag bottom. And yeah, it's only that, I mean, a grey or black denim, it'd still work with it, but I just went for something that was in the border fabric there. Okay, so the choice is yours. You could go for one of the colours as your main bag rather than black. So whatever you would like. So I have, having cut my panel, I then cut myself another piece of canvas. This is going to be my lining fabric. I have also, on the one I've made, I used thermolam. On this one, I've used fusible fleece. I just wanted to see the difference. They will both work. This will be, what would I say, slightly more structured, and the thermolam one will be a little bit softer. But as it's a messenger, it really doesn't matter. You could, if you wanted it to be a lot firmer, you could use Styleville, Vlieslean's Styleville, which is the foam wadding, which would also be really nice. So let's just see here. I'm not going to be able to see any comments, I don't think. Whoops, let's pop that down. So I'm going to turn it around so that you can see what I am doing. Now I'm hoping, I've had to plug it in because my battery was on charge. So let's just push it down here and, whoops, no, that's the wrong way. Swivel it around. Oh, I'm useless. I am absolutely useless. No, I've got that in the wrong way. So let's just take that out and pop it in. Oh no, that's right. No, I had it in right. There we are. Look at the mess. Just look at the mess. I just can't remember how to swivel this thing around. Oh no, I've got to leave that up there. And down we go to the machine. Rotate my phone. There we are. No, I'm not rotating it. There we are. So let's just come up a little bit. Hello, Lynn. No worries at all. So if we just go up a little bit further, you'll be able to see all that little bit of mess there. But I'd like you to be able to see the needle there. So here we are. So having these pieces, I have also got my, here we are. I've got my other pieces, my other outer pieces, which are, so we have two pieces which are 10.5 inches by 11, both with the fusible fleece on the back. And then I have one strip that is 1.5 inches by 11, which is the base, and two strips also with fusible fleece on the back, which are 10.5 by 1.5. Okay, so I'm just going to set those aside for the moment because the other thing, I'm going to start with the flap, but the other thing we have is the handle. So I've done my strap, and we will do that first of all. Oh, no, it's just reminded me I haven't. So I have put it's extendable, so I've got a slider on there. Oh, perhaps I've got one in here. Please let there be. Yes. Okay, so this particular make just uses one D-ring and a slider. So I'm going to show you how we put those on. So let's deal with the handle first of all. I'll put those pieces out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do is just cut off. So this is our handle, which is made in the same way as I usually do, which is folding the fabric. Let's fold this piece again. 4 inches wide. I fold it in half, wrong sides together, and press it. I then open it out, fold the raw edge to that center crease on both sides and press it. And then I fold it in half and press it again. So it's now 1 inch wide. And then I stitch along both edges. Sometimes I stitch down the middle as well. Sometimes I do 5 lines. So the choice is absolutely yours. So this is canvas. So the width of fabric is quite long. So there's a width, it's about 60 inches, I think, 54 to 60. And so I'm just going to cut off one piece for the tab. And we don't need it to be too long. So this is probably about 3 inches. So I'm just going to cut one piece. I'm going to leave that for the moment. So I'm going to take this one piece and with the, not the slider, with the D-ring, we're going to take our D-ring and we're going to thread this little piece through the D-ring, line up the raw edges, and then I'm going to stitch across as close as I can to the D-ring itself and also across those raw edges. It just helps to keep everything together. So let's just hold that and we'll do, and I just stitch from stitch to stitch. So, all right, that row of stitching there, I just stitch in between. We can clip those little bits off. That's going to go in the seamer, but then I'm going to stitch down there just to hold those raw ends together, probably about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. So that's all nicely. It's not going to splay or go anywhere because that's nicely fixed together. So I'll put that aside for a minute and we'll take our slider. And with the slider, what we're going to do is feed the end, one end, doesn't matter which, into the slider and over that center bar. So let's just push that through. It's dead easy and I'm making a meal of it. So just pop that through so that you can see it's over that bar in the center. Then if you look at the underside and you fold about 1/4 of an inch back, and put that down onto the main part of the belt. So we are going to stitch across there to hold it. So just make sure you've got enough distance there for the width of the foot that is going to go. So I may actually turn it over because I do like to stitch from the top. And I can see where that fold is. And I haven't bothered to put a pin in there, but I'm just going to stitch. You can just have a peek underneath. And I'm just going to stitch across once and I'll just reverse over that stitching and I'll stop in the middle because there's nothing worse than those edge pieces of thread just sitting there and sticking out. So there I've got a nice neat, just push that under a bit, a nice neat slider attached to my belt, my strap even. So now I'm just pulling this to the other end. I've got my slider here. I've got my other end here. And on this end, I'm going to hang off my D-ring with the tab on there. So let's just slide that on. Now, before I do too much, I'm just going to make sure that it's hanging the right way. So when I come to slide, because I am going to slide this end back over the slider, and I like my turned back piece to be on the inside. I like it to be trapped there rather than if I thread it through that way, that's showing on the outside. So I always thread it back through so that when my 2 pieces of the strap are together, it's over the top of where my piece is. So I am just going to check, and that is twisted. So I'm going to check that it's not twisted, which it isn't. And also, when I go back to the fold end, I want to make sure my tab is hanging off of that strap this way. I don't want it to be. So you could take it off now, I suppose. Yeah, you might be able to twist it round, but I don't know. I'll just make sure it's on the right way before you go anywhere. So going back to my two ends, one with the slider on, I'm now going to feed this back, the end of the strap, over the slider, like that, just like threading a buckle really. And there you now have your extendable strap. There's one end, there's the other, with the slider in the middle to extend your bag to whatever length you like. So I've got my two ends, and these are going to go into the side seams of the bag. So we can set that aside for the minute because that's all finished as far as we need to go. So let's have a look at our main piece of the bag. So what we're going to do now, I'm just going to see if I can get my iPad because I can't. I've got to bring it through. And it's always nice to see what is going on. There we go. Let's just get it up on the pad. There we go. Let's move over here and see what we can. I am on the So Totally Trisha page, aren't I? Oh, that's it. We must be here. Yes, we are here now. Okay. Right, let's see where I can pop that so that I can see. Oh, we must be here. Yes, we are here now. Okay. Don't want to hear my voice. Pop that so that I can see. Oh, rubbish. Okay. Right, so we've got that there. Where's my voice going? I don't know. Now I won't be able to see the comments. We're like, no, I don't want that. This is what I want. Comments. Comments. Oops, no. Comments. Dear, oh dear. Comments. Not edit. Let's see. Perhaps they'll come up in a minute. I'm sure you're singing and dancing while I mess around. So, we have, oh no, perhaps I turn it, that's right. Ah, that's better. Turn it up the right way, that's correct. Okay. Could do the couldn't I? Could do the piping in purple to match. Oh, Jack's liking this too. Oh, Sophie's new to making bags. Oh, well, you'll love this, Sophie. Because it really isn't too difficult. And if you don't want to put piping in, ignore it. You know, you could just make this bag, as I'm going to show you, without the piping. So forget this stage. This is just an addition. So I have got ready-made piping. And all piping is bias binding or a bias strip with a piping on the inside. You can make your own, but I'm very, very lazy and I'd buy some instead. So I have got some black piping, and all we're going to do is line the edge of the piping, so this strip, with the edge of the flap piece. And I'm going to put a pin there just to start off with. Now, the best way to add piping is to use your zipper foot. Now, this machine does not have a zipper foot, but it does have a narrow foot, which will suffice. So I'm just putting on my narrow foot because this is going to help. It's not perfect because it does leave a little gap. So your zipper foot is by far the best thing to use because you can get your needle to stitch close to this rounded part of the piping. So having put my foot on, you can, if you like, pin your piping all the way around the edge. Now, the beauty of piping being with a bias covering is that, can you see how that fits perfectly curved around my curve? And one of the reasons for doing the bag flap with curved edges is that we don't have to. It's all one continuous piece going around the curve. You can do piping around a square corner, but it is more difficult to get it really neat. So this is easier by having a curve at those edges. So I am going to put my foot down, and I've got the foot right next to the piping. Now this is where your zipper foot will allow the needle to go even closer than mine is. It is good enough, and I'm not putting any pins in, but by all means do. Or, you know, you could put clips along the way, but every time I put a clip on, I've got to take a clip off. So I don't, but if you want to, you can. It only needs about 30 inches of piping, so it doesn't need a lot. And as I say, you can make your own. So all I'm going to do, I'm just carefully stitching with the edge of the foot against that piping. So it is a little bit wider, if you like, than, there we are, I'm just, the seam is wider than I'd normally do. I'd normally do 1/4 of an inch. However, when the piping is revealed, when we put the lining piece to this, it actually comes out to a similar size to, or the flap comes out to a similar size to what it would have been if I had used 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. But you do need to get as close as you can. So lining up the bias edge here with the edge of the flap and curving it where it needs to curve. And you can see how easy it is. I'm just using my fingers to hold it in place and allowing my machine foot to just rest against the piping so that I get a good, there we go, a nice fit, if you like. So I've got this piping on a reel, so I'm just going to trim it when I get here. Okay, so let's just cut that off flush with the top and just hold that down so it's all aligned. Okay. So I'll just reverse there just so that's anchored. So there I have my piping all nicely attached, and that when we do the lining of the flap, that's what we'll get. Lovely, lovely. So all we need to do now is get our lining piece, which could be the same colour as my lining, but I actually quite like a flap that is the same fabric as the outer, the main fabric. So all I'm going to do now is to line that up with the top, just like before. And again, if you want to put pins all around the edge to hold that in place, you can, or clips. But what I do is I just push that over, push my finger down, and you can see that raised part. And then I'm just making sure the edge of the lining fabric is right on the edge there. And we're going to get a good result. So let's just push that down, put my machine foot right next to, so I've got it right next. You can actually see, I don't know if you can see there, but there's the raised part of the piping. So I'm just making sure that the edge of the fabrics line up. And then I'm just going to carry on stitching. And when it comes near the corner or the curved part, I'm just making sure that fits flush as well. So I am just holding that down, and I'm pushing into that recess there where the piping is, because obviously it causes a bit of a bulge and you don't want that. So what I might do is just to make sure these are held properly, is I'm going to put a clip just around these curves, as well as with me just checking as I go that that is really, really snug along that line and snug where the piping is. Okay, so that is fine to there. So I'm just pulling this other piece out because we want this to line up just here. And the reason I'm pushing this down is because it's excess fabric. It makes it bumpy with the piping there. So we do want these outer edges to line up, as well as stitching right next to the piping. So I'm doing that. I'm just keeping my finger down there and keeping the foot tucked into the piping, so that I'm just getting that just so. I've got my finger the other side of the piping to hold it in place too. So let's just hold that down and keep that canvas lining lined up. Put my fingers down on there and around there. So you see that's just shifted just a little bit. So then I can line up this end just also to keep it. We don't want it to stretch either. We want it to fit as well as when it was nice and flat. So let's put a few pins just around there. Okay, and tuck that in. And around there, making sure that's still aligned. I think I probably have stretched it just a little bit because I've got a little bit of a excess, but we can smooth that in quite easily. And I'm carrying on. We're nearly at the top. When I get to the top, I can see there's a minimal, perhaps 1/8 of an inch or so, a little bit longer, but we shall trim that off. Okay, so there it is. And then all we'll do now is to turn it to the right side. And the other thing you could do, so now you can see that piping just sits proud of the colour. There we are. And nice and neat. So we can press that. Okay. So you can see I haven't quite gone close enough there. But what we could do is, and I haven't got black thread on, but you can top stitch along around here, which would also look really nice. But that just turns over, and that's really, really quite good. There is a PDF. It is for Sew with Trisha members. So the Sew with Trisha group is the one that costs £5 per month. But this pattern will be on the website for £6. I'm just trimming this little bit off that's stretched a little. There we go. Okay. So I've just trimmed that across there, and then all I'm going to do now is stitch across here just to hold those layers together for when we pop it onto the bag. Now, if you are going to put a magnetic clasp on here, you do need to put your magnetic clasp on the reverse before we go any further. So all I would do, I'm going to put a clasp with the green machine on, but all I would do is find the centre. So I'll measure that, and it's around about 10. So at 5, I would put a little mark here. And I think what I would do, if I put a pin through to the other side, okay, and that's where I would put my magnetic clasp. So with a magnetic clasp, all you would need to do is then you can go in here and you can make your little marks, because they have legs on them. So make your little incisions, pop the magnetic clasp in there, and then you can go into the bag here, or into, not the bag, into the flap, and be able to splay them and then close the top up. But as I say, I'm going to put a clasp on afterwards, so the top being closed doesn't matter. So let's just, across here, I'm just going to do a large stitch just to hold those layers beautifully together. Okay, so that is all done. As you can see, I've just got a long stitch across there, which holds the lining in place, ready for later. Okay, so what we're going to do now is let's work on the main bag. And here we have our, if you look at them, the base piece is slightly longer. So I've got 2 side pieces, so they're sides, that one's the base. So working with the base first of all, we're going to take one of our sides and just check that those sides match, okay? Because one of the sides is 11 by 10 and a half, so hard to see. But if you start stitching and you see there, the base is longer, so that's the wrong way round. So you do want to make sure that you've got the longest piece with the longest edge. So all we're going to do is put this right sides together and pin along here if you like. Let's put a pin in there just for a change. If you're new to bag making, you'll probably like to put a few more pins than I do. So let's put a pin in the middle, and we're going to start stitching about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge, and we're going to stop about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. It just helps make it much more easy when we're adding the sides together. Now, I am going to be using 1/4 of an inch seam now, so let's just take off my little foot, which I adore, and put back on my 1/4 of an inch foot. I should have used another machine that has a zipper foot, but I just tend to, this is my go-to machine. Right, so, as I say, I'm going to start 1/4 of an inch in. Whoops, let's just pop that down. So about 1/4 of an inch, don't go right from the edge, that's all. And when I start, I'm just going to reverse a little. I'm going to put my stitch length down to 2.5, but I'm just going to stitch straight across here. Take that pin out now. And then when we get to the end, I'm going to stop 1/4 of an inch from the end and just reverse. Okay, so let's just finger press that open there. And then I'm going to get the other side, this side here, and I'm going to put this one right side. So let's get my other side, and I'm going to put this right sides together. It's probably easier to see there. Make sure these are the same length, so we've got the correct sides to go. They are. So as you see, right sides together with the other main bag piece. Align that just there and along the edge. Start 1/4 of an inch in. Hold that together, and I hold this end as well, and just go straight across, and we'll stop 1/4 of an inch from the end and reverse. Okay, so I've got the two pieces. There's my base. Can you see there's my baseline there? So what I like to do now at this end, I push this seam outwards and I push this seam to the other way. And then what you have is that 1.5 inch, that's the whole width of the strip that I put in the base. And what it means is then I can then put one of my side pieces down on here, and I can see, I can center it, and these edges line up with the seams because they are poked out in each direction. And then I'm actually going to stitch about 1/4 of an inch in and 1/4 of an inch from the end, so that, as I say, this is going to help when we stitch the sides up. So it's where the seam comes under here. So I'm stitching from there where the seam is to the other seam. So let's just pop that over here and 1/4 of an inch in. And I will reverse because we want this to hold really well, and stop at the other side. So you can see that there. It's only just across that little bit, and that's going to come out. That's going to be our side seam. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. So let's just flip that round. There's that one. Here is the other one. So again, I'm just splaying my seams outwards and then just flatten that down, and then I can put my my side piece centered over there, and let's go up here, and why that's being so awkward there, that's, let's push that up, that's why. Okay, so 1/4 of an inch in from the edge and 1/4 of an inch from there as well. So I've now got both of my side pieces attached. So the only thing I need to do, what we do now is we want this side to join this side here. So I'm going to align that top edge. And again, pop a pin on there if you like. I'm going to put a binding clip because I end up sticking the pin into me. So always align the top edge, bring your hand down to the bottom, and then you'll be able to line up easily that bottom piece. Let's get that out of the way, which is where we stopped 1/4 inch in from the edge. So let's just pull this around here and align that there. Starting at the top, we can reverse to hold that nice and firmly. Make sure these edges are lined up beautifully. And I'll take that clip off now. I'm just going to hold that together. Just pull that over. And I'm going to stitch right over, right down to the bottom, because that, there we are, that holds all those pieces together, and I've gone all the way down to the bottom. So having done that side, so we've got one side piece attached there, I'm now going to, it's only one side it can go to, so it's going to go to here. And again, clip if you would like to, line up at this top edge and pull that down, and that lines up beautifully at the other end. So at the top, reverse at the top, and then just hold those seams. I mean, it feels really nice and firm with the fusible fleece. So let's just pull that out, and you can see how that fits nice and flat just there. That's at the bottom of the seam. So just hold that down, stitch all the way down to that end and right to the very end there. So now, having done that, we need to do this other side here. So again, flap, match that top edge and put a pin on there or a clip on there and swivel that around and start from the top, and then just hold this down to that very end, line that up beautifully so, and keep holding those edges together. And the fusible fleece actually helps that really, really well, because as I say, it's firm. Okay, next piece, lift that up, and we've got the last side to go there too. So I can just pop that straight under, and I usually line up the bottom because it helps pull that together so that you know that's all lined up as we go. So got that lined as well. 1/4 inch all the way down to the bottom, and there we go. So there is our bag. I think we'd get a pizza in there, couldn't we? So having done that, I'm just going to turn it through to the right side, like that. And most definitely poke out these corners because you want to make sure they are all stitched. There we go. So it's sort of slightly rounded, that is fine. And then the other side, but we want to make sure there's no holes where we haven't quite caught the seam. Now, if I'd used black thread, it would also have been a little bit better. Okay, so that's actually nice and flat. I would give it a press, but actually it doesn't really need one. There we go. A little bit of marks there. Okay, so we have our outer bag ready. So the next thing we would need to do is make our lining. So we make the lining in exactly the same way. So here we have, it looks just the same. The only difference is in one of the side seams. So when I was sewing the side up, I've left a gap for turning. I did it in the very first seam I sewed, because sometimes you can say, I'm going to leave a gap in there, and you forget. So you've always got 4 seams that you've got the chance of leaving your gap. So I did it in the first one, great. If you forget as you're stitching, you've got the second, the third and the fourth chances to leave your gap. So we've got that ready. The next thing we need to do is, let's see, we can either put our flap on, which I think we'll do now. So we've got our flap. We want this to go right side down, line up with the top of the bag. Okay, and just center that so I can see there is a minimal amount, but that fits beautifully across there. So as I say, either pins. So I am going to just pin, no, I'm going to clip actually, because I know. So I'm just making sure that's exactly halfway across. And I can't take this, or I might do, but I'm going to stitch from the inside across here where I've just lined that up, because it is easier. So I'm just making sure this lines with the edge of the flap. Okay, and I'm going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch in, and I'll take that pin out there a minute. So this is just to save, I mean, once in my early days of bag making, I used to leave the pins in right until I was putting the lining together, and it was a bit of a pain. But I now realise if you sew that down now and you don't have to have your pins in, it makes life so much easier. So always put the flap right side down to one of the sides. Then we will take our bag strap. So the bag strap will fit, one end will be at one end. Oh, actually I should have done a little bit further there. Let me just do that a little bit more, because that's nowhere near that side edge. Better. I don't want it coming undone. Okay, so there is my side, and I'm going to put this right side down. So I am just lining up. The strap actually fits totally in there. That fits perfectly. So now I do like to put 2 pins into the bag handle, because when you put one in the middle, it can actually go sideways and you have half of your strap enclosed with your stitching and half hanging out. So if you put 2 pins, that holds that there perfectly. So I've got my actual slider is face down to the bag, and then we'll go all the way around this edge, and the tab at the other side will fit perfectly onto that side. So there's my side seam, and I'm going to pop that perfectly onto there, and we'll put a couple of pins just to hold that too. Okay, so there's 1 and there is 2. Okay, so that's quite thick. Okay, now I think what I'm going to do is take off my extension table, because it does get in the way. So let's just take that, because I am going to need it. Oh, goodness. There we are. Let's take that off. So if you've got a free arm machine, whoops, it is so much easier. Right, so now that I have that off, I'm now going to, instead of having those pins there, I am just going to pop this down here, and I am going to stitch across where the pins are, so that I don't have to have the pins sitting there all the time. So we can just flatten that down and just slowly across there, because it is quite bulky. Okay, so that is just holding that in place, and then let's just swivel it round and hold the other one in place too. So again, I know the piping is, that's what's doing it. Okay, so again, just to keep this, I didn't reverse on the other side, but if you reverse there we go. So there we are. So we've now got our bag. There's our flap attached, and there are both of the sides of the bag there with the handle. So all we need to do now is pop it into the lining. So let's just hold that together and grab our lining here and push, make sure the handle is all the way down. So let's push that in, and then we can let that fall open, but just push your hand in, because the first thing we're going to try and do is to line up these outer seams here. So you can see there is either the tab or the strap end. There is my seam. So, and I am going to use lots of clips here. Or where is it? So there is my strap. So let's just pull that down. You can tuck everything in as well as you can. Okay, so clip, binding clip. So first side there, and then second side here. So there is my handle again. So we want to line up. So let's just push that in a little bit further so that the edges line up. I just need to push that down because it's because there's so much in there. But let's line up those seams. And there, that's it. So get that piping shouldn't be in there, but let's line that seam up. Okay, like that. And then we'll put the rest of the clips around here. So let's just push the bag in a little bit more. And what you'll find is that all the lining lines up with the top of the bag. So binding clips across the top like that. Lining up the lining edge and the outer bag edge like that. Oh, I tell you what, oh no, we'll do that next. And then flip it over and you'll see that lines up as well. So let's see, we've got that there. Oh, I've got a little bit of music in the background. So let's pop that there. Clips all the way. And I do put my clips around here because I want it to fit well. Okay. So I've got my clips all the way around the top now. All I'm going to do is stitch the whole way around. So let's see. So as I say, when you have a free arm machine, so that's where you take off the accessory tray, it is so much easier. Mine has a base onto the table, so I haven't got that flexibility, but I'm just going to pull it over, making sure this still lines up. I'm just going to drag that. There we go. So there we go. Back to our normal stitch length. There we are. And I'm stitching 1/4 inch in from that edge, just making sure all of those edges are lined up. So just push that across. And when you come to the side, you will notice it is fairly bulky because we have, you can hear that as it goes through, we've got the strap in there as well. So, but it is absolutely fine. Take my clips off as I go and push that lining to match the edge. Keep that nice and straight aligned. Pull that out. There we are. So, and we're coming around to the other side seam. Take that clip out there and across there. Not quite as bulky, but There we are. And we're still coming round until we get back to the beginning. And just stitch about an inch or so over the first set of stitches, just there. Now we have our gap in the lining here. So we can just scrunch our bag up a little bit and pull it through. I could have left my opening a little bit bigger, actually. Right, let's just keep swiveling that around, pulling a little bit, pushing a little bit through, and it will come through. Okay. So, going to be a little bit longer than we were the other evening, but we are very nearly done. So let's just, I'm just trying to keep it really, I don't want to split that opening, but there it is. And we can give that another little press too. So just check around the edge, make sure everything is still enclosed like there. Let's just pull that bit of thread out. Okay, and that bit of thread there and there. And make sure our corners in our lining are stitched, because we don't want those to have a hole in there. That's it. And then all we need to do is close the gap in the lining. So we can either go to the iron, or, as I like to do, is just push in and nail press. So then I can push in the other side about 1/4 inch. And there we are. It's really quite creased it all up when we pulled it through. So I'm just nail pressing along there. And then if you get that seam edge on the top and pull that together, they come together beautifully. So let's just put a clip just there to hold it, and then pull along there, tuck those threads in or clip them off. Okay, I think that's gone in nicely. There's another bigger one, and oh, there we are. Let's just tuck that bit in like so. Probably easier to clip it off, but that's okay. We will just put our clip on there. So I just clip that to hold it so that I can then put it under the machine, and we will just stitch very close to the edge, knowing that's going to, and I'm just pulling there just so I can see both of those edges are aligned. Oh, that's it. There we go. Make sure they're aligned, and that way we know that they are going to be stitched together. If you like to close your seams by hand, by all means do. I mean, it would be preferable to use a matching colour here as well. So let's just clip that off, clip those horrible little bits that are coming out there, and then also just there. Okay, and then the little, just to check, just pull it just to make sure that's all stitched together, which it is, and then we can tuck the lining into the bag. So let's just push that in and put my hands down in there, pushing my fingers out to these corners to bring the lining right down. Just there, that's it. And what I always do as well is to give this a press around this top edge. So I'm just pushing that in, pushing the lining in all the way down, and so that we can, which I'm not going to do now, I will do that on another machine. I'm going to top stitch around that top edge. So let's just move that around and push that in. I am going to just put the iron on, just so that we can see. Let's see if I can bring this over here. So I'm just going to move this over to the ironing board. Whoops. Right, we have the ironing board here. Okay, so as I say, what I like to do, I'm going to bring the flap from underneath. So there is my flap, and I'm just going to push the lining down there so that I can then, and I like a bit of steam for this as well. Okay, so there's a bit of steam. We can go into the bag a little bit further. So that has given that a nice smooth line across there. So let's just push that back, and then on the other side, let's just pull that in and press along here. So I've got the edge of the fabric right inside the bag. Okay, and then let's just move that over, and when we get our flap coming over, that is all going to tuck inside, and we'll just top stitch around those edges. Let's just give that a little press, a little bit of steam, just to, that's better, just to make it look a little less crinkled. The other side is perfectly okay. And our bag now is ready to just bring the flap over, and we are done. So purple lining and beautiful coloured flap. Okay, let's pop that around there. So 2 bags now. Do you want to see the spider? Oh, he's not made an appearance tonight. That's okay. Don't mind that. Okay. Oh, can't see any comments. Never mind. But there is our number 1 bag. So it is it's a nice size. It is, it's about, as I say, 10-inch square by 1 inch wide. I've now got 2 bags, but they look different because I have a lining, and so we've got a lovely gold lining and a lovely purple lining, but the choice is yours. Purple and black do go together well, don't they? Okay, so it wasn't really that difficult, was it? As I say, if you didn't want to put the piping on, don't. Just leave that part out and line your flaps up, your lining and your outer fabric, and just stitch around. The other thing I did think about this as well was it would be lovely with a bit of quilting, a little bit of free motion quilting over there, because, let me sit down and put that up there, or to add some beads, or to add some gold Lurexy thread there. Oh, you could just really bring it to life. Not that it isn't full of life as it is, but there we go. That is it. Quite, as I say, the only thing I need to do is put my little fastener there. You do love a bag. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Thanks, Bev. You have a good weekend too. I'm going to go and have my dinner now. I'll have a weekend of making up the scrap boxes. So I showed those last night, the scrap boxes that I have on the website with lots. Thank you, Christine. Lots and lots of fabric in there for either £25 or £15. They're on the website too. And of course, this fabric is, as I say, a strip, a panel with 4 of the circles on there. That's right, you do. I didn't mention that, Beverly, and it, I was going to just so I'd finished. I didn't say at the time. The only thing you need to do, I have put it in the PDF. If you are putting a magnetic clasp on, you remember the first part on the flap is before you stitch across the top. And then when you put the second part, you must do that before you close the gap in the bag. But you want to tuck your lining inside just to gauge where you want the clasp to go. So if yours is there, lift it up, make a mark underneath, and then work through the gap in the lining to put that second part on. Oh, thank you, Bridget. That is lovely. I'm glad you've had 2 bags this week. So those in the Sew with Trisha group are 2 bags into, 3 bags. Here we are, the 8th of August, and there's 3 bag PDFs with videos. So every one of my bags will be on YouTube. Some of them will only be for the Sew with Trisha members, but a lot will be on there for everybody. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. It has been lovely having your company. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week for, well, who knows what? I'll have a think over the weekend, and I'm sure to bring you a lot of inspiration and things to be enjoyed to make. So, as I say again, thanks for joining me, and see you soon. Bye for now.